Hello, and welcome back to Monifactory. Last episode, we started getting some MV machines set up. We also upgraded our circuit processing capabilities so that we unlocked the second tier of LV circuits, allowing us to make twice as many of these at once, and we now have the ability to make twice as many MV tier circuits. So we technically have a way to make cheaper circuits now, and if I remember right, I'm pretty sure did I make a whole stack of these? Oh yeah, they were right there. I'm gonna make a whole stack of MV circuits as well. Or just turning these into MV circuits is what I meant. Because we're gonna be making a whole bunch more MV machines today. So that just means I'm gonna have to get started on making all of these. Alright, let me get crafting. Yay, so I've got my LV circuits, the stack of diodes, a stack of resistors. I'm waiting on a whole bunch of gold wire. For some reason, gold takes a really long time to make wires out of. It's like this for all of the wire recipes, even the normal one, 10 seconds. So we're gonna have to consider maybe getting an upgraded wire mill if we are gonna keep making gold wire. Another thing I'm waiting on are those resin circuit boards, or not the resin, the phenol ones. And this is a terrible way of making this. Don't do this. This is the worst way I've seen to make phenol. Basically, this takes a half a stack of charcoal, makes 1 bucket of coal tar. This makes 100 millibuckets of phenol, and then that makes 1 phenolic circuit board. Don't make it like this. We're gonna get a better thing going here soon. But I just got enough to make all the circuits we want. So never again. The other absolute ridiculous thing is how much silver this phenolic printed circuit board takes. Eventually we can make a chemical reactor to cut that by like 4, I think. And then using sodium persulfate, we just have to do some chemical work with that. I'm not quite ready for that yet, I think. So we need a chemical reactor, an electrolyzer, another chemical reactor, some way to get sulfuric acid, probably through sulfur trioxide, and then another chemical reactor, and then an electrolyzer to get oxygen. That's just, too much. So instead, we're just gonna make our wires like this for now. And then I shouldn't have to do this again, at least until we can get sodium persulfate, I think. Alright, eventually though, we will have our phenolic circuit boards and everything needed to make a whole bunch of these MV circuits so that I can keep going. So now for the reason we are making all of these circuits. Get rid of this now. Today, I would like to try to make polyethylene. Polyethylene is a chemical that we turn into sheets, and then we need this for applied energistics, auto crafting, and the first HV circuits. So this is going to be a huge step in the progress we're making. But the problem is polyethylene is a whole long line of chemical processing. There's lots of different ways to get this, but I think I found a way that works for me. Hopefully. This is the part where I get confused too. So all of this I have here starts from oil. Oil is found in the world as a fluid, not something that you see, but it's there still. And the way we extract this oil is with a fluid drilling rig. So we're gonna need to build one of those. This is a multi-block as well. So we're gonna need to build one of those. We also need a MV assembler in order to make this, as we can see. So I guess that's the first thing I'm gonna need to make. And we can use EMI to our advantage here to see all of the components we need, and that's a lot of them. Okay, I think all my crafting components are satisfied. Our assembler is going to be the most complicated one to craft, of course, and the most expensive. 10 motors. It's a little ridiculous, but that's okay. And then the conveyor belts are made in the assembler with rubber. And then we make one MV assembler. Oh, this also means we can make Kanthal now. Okay, it looks like I need silicon to make the HV circuits anyway. To make Kanthal, we're gonna need to mix together chrome, aluminum, and iron. And that requires a lot of chromium that I do not have. Oh, maybe I do. I do have enough. Awesome. So then we just throw all this in a mixer together, and we should start getting some Kanthal, which we will have to smelt in the blast furnace, I believe. Oh, but this requires HV power. Oh, man. I think this means we're going to need to put 2 MV energy hatches on our blast furnace. And I also need a ultra low power wafer, which comes from a blue lens, not sapphire. So I gotta figure out sapphire plates real quick, just like we did in the last one. I should have sapphire, I think. Okay, so I sifted up a whole bunch of sapphire to make a sapphire block that we can turn into a sapphire lens, and then we can make those wafers. While I'm thinking about it, it would be a really good idea to build a battery to buffer some of this energy that we're producing, so that we're not just like sitting on it, and that we can generate a whole bunch and have a whole bunch saved up in case we need it, which we're going to, honestly, here in a minute. What we would need for this is a MV battery buffer, which we can plop down along our cable line somewhere. Oh, but first we need some batteries. That would help. To make batteries, you need battery alloy, which I think I may have accidentally made some before. Yeah, this is just lead and antimony together. And we also have our ultra low power chips now, so we can make the energy hatches. And then we're gonna need to turn this off for a second. Disconnect our old conductive iron cables and connect up some energetic alloy. Oh, after we put the hatches in, of course. Now, obviously, this isn't going to work because it's trying to run at HV. And everything else is running too. But once I get these batteries going, we just need some plates. Oh, and I need a canner. Yuck. But we're going to make some medium battery holes. I only have enough for 2 at the moment, but this 4 times battery buffer can hold 4. Definitely am going to need to add glass production to our cobble works as well at some point. But then with a canner, we can turn our battery holes into actual batteries. And right now, the easiest thing that we have access to is sodium batteries, which doesn't hold as much as like lithium or even cadmium, but it is the easiest thing that we have available. So we're going to pop this on here, can up some batteries, and then we can get our battery buffer charging. And there we go. Now we have a way to store our power. That way, in case anything happens, we don't lose it all immediately. Say, for example, we need to run an HV blast furnace. That would definitely drain your power. So speaking of, that's what we need to do. And I need to get this Kanthal smelting. So we have 2 stacks of this to smelt at HV blast furnace. Okay, jankily I got it working. This just needed to be separate from the rest of this. Because it was trying to power the whole thing with 1 wire, I think. I have no idea how this works, honestly. But it is working. We're getting some Kanthal. And then for making silicon, we don't have to run this at HV, so we can knock it down. Bad news is that we need like 2 stacks of Kanthal. This is gonna take actual ages. Alright, now because I'm a genius, I came up with another strategy. And that is going to be to win by connecting 2 battery buffers instead of having this run off of one big thing. I think it makes sense. I'm having a hard time explaining it, but it'll make sense. So basically, we need 2 individual MV wires to go into here. I think this is how this works. Please yell at me in the comments if it's not. But then these should fill up a whole bunch. Oh, and I just realized that one of these is not working, which would help a lot. Oh my goodness. So now if we turn this on, it should just drain power from these very slowly instead of draining it from our whole system and stopping. So we should have a good sized buffer here for this to run, I hope. And then obviously once it turns off, we can turn it off and let it recharge for a bit. But that should run a little longer. And then we can still have our other stuff going in the background. So now we just need to wait for 2 stacks of Kanthal. Well, I suppose while we're waiting, we can start working on the oil stuff, since we need that as well. So where was I doing with that? Right, we need the fluid drilling rig. Okay, so finally I was able to gather all of the materials that we need for all of these machines for our oil processing setup to get polyethylene. Oh, and I added that little world timer in the bottom so you can see how long this is taking me. Almost 2 full days of playtime. Before I make all those machines though, I need to go through some changes I've made around here. Just some like little quality of life stuff. I added a storage controller. These are really easy to craft, so that our leaves and saplings don't get stuck into our input bus. So now that's taken care of. This also has a void upgrade. And I changed this around so that our charcoal is now getting put into an extractor, which is getting us a little bit of extra wood tar. And then distilling that into benzene as well. And then obviously moved all these over. Back here, I separated some aluminum drums to hold our oxygen gas for electrolyzing, or for making steel. I just have to borrow that electrolyzer anytime I need some. And then added a whole bunch of storage drawers to hold the outputs that we're getting from clay dust. Look at how much aluminum we have. And I think that's it for right now. I still don't have any Kanthal. I haven't been able to smelt that stuff up yet. But I'm going to do that next, because we are going to need those coils to make the first HV circuits. And honestly, I can probably start this while we're waiting, or while I'm working on all of our other stuff. Where to even put it? So, for our oil processing setup, we're going to start with the fluid drilling rig. And this needs to be made in an assembler. And then this also takes some solid machine casings, some steel frames, and then I'm going to use an MV output hatch and 1 MV energy hatch. If you look at the multi-block selection, if you look at the multi-block pattern, and you can click around on these blocks to see what can be used in place of each block. So for example, we can see we need at least 3 solid machine casings, and if we wanted to have other outputs, we could. And then we only need 1 MV energy hatch, even though this down here says we need 2. You just need at least 1. And then we can only have a maximum of 1 output hatch. So now we need to see where to build this. So if we use our prospector that we've had and we shift right click with it, we can change it to fluid prospection mode. And this will show us where all of the oil and water is in the world. So we're going to want oil and not heavy oil. We're going to need to build this in a chunk that has that. I think this one over here will be good. Let me get something built out for this real quick. Okay, so now in this chunk, we should have oil. So we can build this thing up. Oh, also one thing I forgot is if you shift right click the controller, it will show you all the blocks that you need to place. You also get a terminal when you start playing, and if you shift right click, it will build it for you. So there we go. There's our fluid drilling rig all built up. I think we just need some power back here. You guys aren't very smart, are you? For the other machines we're going to need 3 chemical reactors, 3 distilleries, and a fluid solidifier. Once we have this hooked up, it should hopefully start making some oil. This is going to get output into a distillery, and then on circuit 2, this will make sulfuric light fuel. This will then need to go into a chemical reactor, and we can of course auto output these. So the next step is going to be to react sulfuric light fuel with hydrogen gas to get light fuel. I guess we're gonna need a source of hydrogen, mostly because I'm lazy. I'm just gonna borrow this for right now. Now this will make light fuel and hydrogen sulfide. We can react hydrogen sulfide to get sulfuric acid. For now though, I'm just gonna make this go into a drum and then just deal with it later. To make the next step, which is going to be severely steam cracked light fuel, we're going to need steam in here. And I think the easiest way to get this is with a fluid heater with some water. So I got to make one of those real quick as well. So with our fluid heater set up, we need to pump water out of the accumulator. This should start making some steam, which we can then output to our chemical reactor. And then this should make severely cracked steam, light fuel, whatever. That's the one. There we go. We got some of that, which we can put into a distillery next. This will make ethylene for us. And then ethylene is going to go into another chemical reactor. And then this will make polyethylene. We do also need air or oxygen gas. Oxygen gas will double how much you get. Well, not double. A little bit more. A good amount more. So we want some oxygen in there. Which, once again, I'm just going to borrow from what we have going on over here. And since we need both oxygen and hydrogen, we could set up an electrolyzer to output to both of those. But we need oxygen to go into here. And once that's in there with the circuit, we should get liquid polyethylene. Fluid solidifier is next. And that's going to go out to here. And then with this powered up and a plate mold inside, this will make us polyethylene sheets. And ta-da! That is how you do it. That is how we're going to get polyethylene for now. Obviously, this is nowhere near fully automatic yet. But it's going to get us some. Even if we have to come through and clean the hydrogen sulfide out. We can make fluid filters with a lapis plate. But anyway, this does work, and it does make polyethylene for us. So now we are one step closer to being able to craft the first HV circuits. We need polyethylene for the transistors, and then that is also where we're going to need silicon. So now comes the Kanthal smelting. I'm just going to have to like AFK and get this guy smelted up. With polyethylene, we can also make the super tanks, which is Gregtech's fluid storage option. These have the ability to void fluids and auto output and everything. So those will be really nice to have for all this chemical work we have coming up. Oh, we need polyvinyl chloride. Okay, we definitely don't have that yet. That's a whole nother step where we would need to combine ethylene with chlorine gas instead to get vinyl chloride. I do not have chlorine. We are gonna need this eventually, really soon though. So chlorine is gonna be probably the easiest way, and the way we're gonna need it for the rest of forever is with another fluid drilling rig. If we extract salt water and then electrolyze it, this will give us some chlorine gas. So that's how we're gonna get that, but we don't have another fluid drilling rig just yet, and I don't plan on making one right now. I want to get this Kanthal over and done with. Okay, I finally have the last piece of Kanthal. So we just need to make a whole bunch of 2x wires. Oh, and I was reorganizing everything to try to make it look a little nicer. I just moved greenhouse. We now have this outputting all the way over to here. These drawers can basically act wireless with the storage controller. You just have to link it up as long as it's within this box. But then I repurposed the other pyrolysis oven to also be making wood tar. So now we basically are doubling how much benzene we're making. And everything else is pretty much the same. Just a little reorganization, nothing crazy. But then our Kanthal and aluminum foil is going to need to go in an assembler. And I need an extractor. And I borrow this because we need some copper fluid in here in order to make the Kanthal coils. And then once we have all 16 of these smelted up or crafted, we're going to replace the copper nickel coils on our blast furnace with these Kanthal coils. And there we go. Now we should be able to smelt recipes that require Kanthal coils, like silicon, for example, which we can see in the bottom of the recipe here, the lowest tier that the coil needs to be. So we need at least Kanthal coils for this. And we're going to smelt up some silicon. And we can drop this back down to MV for now. We don't need to run this at HV. And And then this is the last component, these silicon ingots we need to craft our HV circuits. We're going to pop this into a bender to get a plate, and then we can make transistors. We do need to have an assembler with polyethylene in it for this. And then with that silicon and a little bit of tin wire, we get some transistors, which we can put in a circuit assembler to finally make our HV circuits. I want to make 4 of these to start, which should be enough to get us the MV circuit assembler, along with an HV assembler. Welcome to the HV age. Another thing that polyethylene allows us to unlock is an easier way to make the machine holes. Now we only need 8 plates in order to make one of these. So what we can do is pop these in an assembler to get the casing. And then instead of needing wrought iron and an extra aluminum plate, we can just pop it right back in with 2 cables, and that will get us a machine hole. We can do this for all of the other holes that we're gonna need in the future. I think though, before I get too deep into crafting new circuits and new machines and getting into the HV tier, this is going to be a good place to leave it for today's episode. Next time, we'll get into more complex stuff. So with that, I will see you in the next video. Goodbye.